Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of October 6, 2016. I am Jose Otero. This is Per Schneider.
Hey.
And we are one man down because Brian Altano is not with us. He's over at Comic-Con, but you're still listening to IGN's Nintendo Show. We usually place him over there, but right now it's just us. How you doing?
Harvey.
So we have a 20th anniversary in the works. IGN turned 20 this year, more specifically last episode.
Yeah.
We had that awesome little surprise
you guys fooled me.
/ gag from Steve Butts. But talk a little bit about it, because we always want to remind folks, we have a celebration coming in partnership with Alienware.
Yeah, so 20. It's called 20 Years of Gaming. So if you Google IGN 20 years of Gaming, you'll find the event. It's it's on October 15th, Saturday. So you don't have to take off from work. If you buy a ticket, you also get access to our studio tour at the IGN offices on the 14th. So you will see us. Give you a tour, you can ask questions, but the big event is the next day.
And this is better than our normal First Friday tour, just
yeah.
for folks who are like, I can get that for free on a Friday.
Well, I'll be around, so it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But then on the 15th, we will have a great live show produced by Darren Brazil here at IGN. It's going to have a segment. It's going to have Beyond versus Unlocked versus NVC. So
Why are we doing this?
Oh yeah, we're gonna all be on stage at once. We'll still trying to figure out how that's gonna happen, but it'll be really fun. So you'll be in the audience. You can watch this kind of basically live podcast. We have a couple of other really cool things that'll be up at noon. Naomi will be there from the Daily Fix. You get to meet all the IGN editors. You get to win stuff from the Alienware guys, which isn't too shabby because
it's not cheap.
Those are the machines you want. There'll be food and drink included in the price, a T-shirt included in the price. But after the whole thing, Steve Butts and I, the editor-in-chief and the co-founder of IGN, will do a Q&A. Where we answer the question that we're asked most of the time, and that's how to get a job in games media, how to get a job at IGN. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the things that need to be on your resume and how to apply, how to nail it, right? And then if you bring your resume to the thing and give it to me, I'm going to go through each resume, which we don't often do, right? Because we get thousands of applications for some of the jobs. And I'm going to write back to each of you and tell you what you need on that resume in order to cut it in a job like that. Sound cool?
I think that's extremely generous, but also, don't just give them the resume. Be nice, say hello, take advantage of the opportunity. I've met some folks who, sometimes that's the challenge, right? Like walking up to someone they don't know or that they know through a video that they watch every week versus, in person. And sometimes some of the social stuff doesn't come through. So please stop, say hello, say what's up, then present the resume and let them know what you're looking for, because that's always important too. We all started somewhere.
Yeah, and I know not everybody can be in San Francisco in the Bay Area. If you are within driving distance, do come to it. It's going to be really awesome,
it's worth your time for sure.
It's hard for us to take these shows on the road because when we travel somewhere, we can't do all the other work that we need to do back home. But we're thinking about that too.
Sweet. All right, so let's start with some news. First of all, Yooka-Laylee is getting a boxed release. Did you know about that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So Yooka-Laylee is the... Why don't you explain to folks, what is Yooka-Laylee exactly?
Yooka-Laylee is the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. Well, it's from team members who worked on it. The musician. One of the most memorable things about the game in my book was that awesome soundtrack and the crazy sound effects. But I love the BK games, the original Rare titles, and this is kind of like a reboot of that kind of mascot like Lethal Weapon team up platformer.
Yeah, no, totally.
So he didn't even wink at. He didn't even flinch at the Lethal Weapon thing.
No, I didn't, because I get what you're going
for.
It's
a buddy comedy.
Although Conker took it the complete other way.
Okay, yeah.
But I agree with you, and that is a charming sort of character. The mascot-driven platformer has definitely changed in a lot of ways, and it's nice to see something like this getting a comeback. So Playtonic is the name of the developer.
Yep.
They said, do we have plans for a box release? Today we can confirm the answer is yes. However, they don't have the full details yet on what the physical version will include. But Kickstarter backers can upgrade their pledge to get a box copy. So if you're someone who backed this game on Kickstarter and you're excited about it, you can change from digital to physical and be able to basically get your box copy of the game. Box copy still matters to a lot of people. There's actually a lot of boxes on this desk right now if you're watching the video version, and we're going to talk about that a little later in the show.
I love boxes. I really do. At the same time,
Yeah.
I'm out of room, but there's just something special about it, right? And when you brought back this from Japan, I see here the one of my favorite box art designs from the N64 era, the Ocarina of Time Japanese version. It just looks so awesome and classy, and it falls apart because it's cardboard, but at the same time, it's just this cool kind of
No, I miss boxes
Relic.
too. Yeah, so it's weird because part of me really misses boxes, but part of me doesn't, and I still
The
feel
part
like
of you that boots up a console and can just pick a game to play.
yeah,
right?
but even then you run out of hard drive space.
Yeah.
Like at least with today's games, being the gargantuan size that HD games and God, one day we're gonna be talking about 4K games take up. Like you still run into space constraints for whatever it's worth, but it isn't physical. It's just on your hard drive.
My issue is I'm he of the many consoles in the house, and like I can
He
sign
of many
into
consoles.
Yes, I can sign into the other machines, but when my son wants to play like Far Cry Primal, if it's installed on my account, I can't play Forza while he does that upstairs, right? And so I like to still get a lot of games physical, except in physical form, except for some of the like Pac-Man Championship.
I still miss manuals. Like that's another thing that I'm still kind
well,
of
they're long
sad
gone,
for.
right?
And like no, but I think about it with music, and part of me didn't care for the longest time, but then what did we stop getting the minute we started buying MP3s? We stopped getting the lyrics. You had to look them up, essentially. Usually got them as part of the insert, and you were able to look through them. Get more of the poetry behind like some of it in case you didn't catch it with your ear, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was something cool like when you had a nice vinyl collection too. Like I bought some vinyl recently. There was an awesome release of the Star Wars music from the last Star Wars movie, and the vinyl, the record had a hologram on it off the one. It was a two disc set. One with a TIE Fighter and one with a Millennium Falcon. So when it's on your turntable spinning, you can see this turning spaceship on the vinyl reflect. How cool
dope.
is that?
That's
and
dope.
so
I
I
like
love that about physical media whenever they did something special. Remember the old EA games before consoles came in these big boxes and they had like signatures printed from the developers and these really kind of clever manuals, and it's like it's such a bummer that's gone. And like you brought this in, for those of you listening, it's this is Made in Wario, Mawaru Made in Wario. That's the what is it, Twisted?
Yeah, this is WarioWare Twisted, but in Japan, the Game Boy Advance box for this game specifically was very different than your average Game Boy Advance cartridge. Usually, the box was a very thin sort of cardboard box. This one, it's almost shipped like a DIY, like almost like a project. Like you don't even know, like it's double the size. It's double the width, I think, of what a normal Game Boy Advance box would be. But it has the cartridge in it with the tilt sensor, because if you played WarioWare Twisted, you know that it's all about that. And it's just that zaniness. Like I also like
3-color. It's like it looks so different on your shelf or on a game shelf.
It does.
And then manuals for the Wario games. I forget if this one had it. They had stickers with it.
Yeah,
you could put
I
the
believe that one
stickers
had
in the manual in different places and stuff.
No,
like
because Rhythm Heaven had stickers too, and that's the same developer. It was what's his name? Let me move forward. All right. Well, I'm gonna move on, but I hear you. Like the boxes.
You shouldn't have brought this in. I could talk about this for hours.
No, and you should. Like I feel like this is part of the culture of video games and the history of games that's going away. And sometimes, actually, to be stay on topic of that is even something like this. So this is a Pocket Monster, basically the Pocket Monster trainer. But Pocket Monsters in Japan was Pokemon Green. And as part of the 20th anniversary deal in Japan, they recreated exactly the box to the original games. Obviously, it's for Nintendo 3DS, and they made sure the art reflected that. But Japan has this awesome trend of, even though you're purchasing a digital code, and this is a special case, they don't do this often, you're getting the physical code, you're getting a map, you're getting, I think it has a manual. The cartridge is the same shape and size, only it's a refrigerator magnet now, which I think is awesome.
How cool is that?
And then it has the download code for the game in it. Now, I haven't opened this, but I did buy the Pokemon Green version.
If you're confused, Japan got green, right? Like blue and red never came out.
That's right. Well,
in the
blue
US
came
originally.
in 1999, I think it finally hit Japan. It was late 90s, but the original games were released in 96, I believe, and it was green versus red. It wasn't blue versus red. Blue and red were for North America, but eventually Japan got blue, and they did have a cartridge for blue. They had one for yellow as well. Yellow was a black and white Game Boy game in Japan. It was not a Game Boy Color game.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's right.
That's a fun little Pokemon fact. But yeah, this is stuff that even done right, like in an anniversary sort of style, to me, like is a cool way to just sort of harken back that era, because I miss this stuff. Like I know it takes up space, and I get it, and Lord knows I don't have space for all of this stuff. So now I'm starting to bring it to work and putting it inside of like our cabinets and things like that, just like you've done over the years.
Seriously, EA for their next anniversary, they gotta release these classic games. You know, maybe for modern consoles, maybe they even or their download codes for each console that you could get, and like have the original boxes. This stuff was so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that and sorry, just to stay on this topic for a little bit, it's interesting that game publishers, you know, take Nintendo, for example, and take a series like Zelda that has so much history. There isn't sort of an all-in-one included, like, CD release of everything. You know, like, Kojima got that on the last Metal Gear before the breakup happened. There was the Legacy Collection, and it had every chapter that you could possibly play on a PS3, I believe. Yeah, it was PS3, which was basically almost all of them. I mean, for better or for worse. And it you know, the packaging could have been a little better, but regardless, it's just this massive collection of games. I mean, imagine a Zelda box
like
set
an
with
anthology
like everything
box
with
set,
everything in it, everything.
Stop it.
Stop
right.
it.
What else you got?
All right. Well, another game that has a package, and it was announced from the minute it was kickstarted. That's the other relationship that it has to Yooka-Laylee, is Bloodstained. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is Iga of Castlevania Symphony of the Night fame. This is his new Metroidvania game. Big success.
Over $5 million in the Kickstarter.
Yeah,
when it launched, it was the biggest Kickstarter. It got surpassed by Shenmue, of course.
Yeah, it passed everyone. Until Shenmue came along. So they now have a publisher. 505 Games has agreed to publish the spiritual successor to Castlevania that Iga's working on. Now, Iga had the unfortunate job of pushing that game back in early September. It's now a 2018 release, which of course it's unfortunate, you know, and we talked to him a little bit about it. There's an interview on IGN about what happened and why he feels that game needs more time. And he made an interesting point in our interview where he said, you know, here's the thing, right? Like we accept stretch goals. We try everything to give the consumer what they want. And so we can modify the content, but we're not allowed to modify the deadline, like for when a game is due. He's like that just doesn't seem realistic, or it seems kind of like a broken system. And so, you know, they hit a wall where they just wanted to push it and make it better. And I agree with that. Like, I'm with that. I just hope that they don't go the Mighty Number 9 route where it was delay, and then the final product was not good.
No, I mean, I have a high tolerance for delays, I'd say, because
work in this business.
Because I mean, you do know that the added time is not spent twiddling their thumbs, right? Like they're working on this. They're working on this game, and it is by definition going to get better. The issue comes in when a team can't predict. Like, take The Last Guardian. They cannot commit to a date, and they keep on tinkering, and you don't know if it's even going to be alive in the end, right? Like that's kind of the sign of a production running into trouble. Obviously, with Kickstarters, it's more serious because you paid for something. Yeah. You're basically making a loan, an interest-free loan.
Pre-ordering it, like a Kickstarter to some extent is the longest pre-order possible.
But even more so, the money doesn't go to the retailer or stays on your card until it ships. You're giving somebody the money to create it. Right. Yep. And so you do have a little bit more ownership, I'd say, in the product. And so that's where I think the pushback comes from people saying, no, we do have a stake in this. And like, it's on you as the developer to give us a realistic deadline on when it's going to be out, because maybe I wouldn't have backed it then. But come on, really? Like, if you're excited about another 2D Castlevania, are you going to really draw the line at 6 months earlier or later? I don't think so, right?
No, that's true. And ultimately, so this brings into question what's going to happen to the Wii U port of that game, because that was a stretch goal that fans raised enough money to meet. And he even talked about, like, stretch goals, you know, the importance of being realistic, right? Of talking to your team and saying, hey, is this within the right price and the right budget and the right timing for us to be able to pull this off? But pushing that game to 2018 means if it came out on Wii U, it is the only thing on Wii U.
No, all Wii U's will have self-destructed by then.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And so that just sets up this sort of odd scenario where it's like, well, what do we do? And right now, he doesn't have the answer. His answer made it sound like anything could pretty much happen, but that they understand the care with which they have to take it with it, because people back the game on that promise. Like, some folks, that's the SKU they're looking forward to. That's the one they want. And, you know, when it gets decided, they need to figure that out.
Yeah, and maybe they'll add an NX SKU or something and say, hey, if you got it on Wii U, we can transfer you to that, to people who switch. I wonder how big the audience is of people who kickstart games, have the income to do that, but don't also upgrade their consoles and keep moving with the times. Like, I find it hard to believe that there will be a lot of people in 2018 still only have the Wii U.
I think there's
as
a Vita
console.
SKU too, which that's another example. But I'm sure Japan will keep Vita going till 2018, like no problem.
To me, like, the Vita is not one of those platforms that you like trade away. But I could see people parting ways with the Wii U to finance the NX.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, I sympathize with people who are looking forward to the game, and want it on that platform they already own.
Absolutely.
But man, that kind of stuff happens.
Well, 505 background for folks, also published games more recently as Abzu, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, and Payday 2. Payday 2 being a big hit on PC, to my
understanding. I really liked Abzu. That was cool.
Yeah, I thought Abzu was cool as well, and Brothers was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Swimming with whales.
So it is the first week of October is almost in the books. And you know what?
What?
NES Classic Edition is still not available for pre-order.
Hold on. I pre-ordered it. Oh, no. I pre-ordered the one from Japan.
We're going to talk about that in a second. Oh, you did get one?
Yeah, I pre-ordered it from I was able to order a Japanese console from Amazon Japan.
Nice.
And get it shipped to the U.S., but I could not pre-order the U.S. one.
What's going on? I bring it up because, yes, the Famicom Mini was announced for Japan. Now, when the NES Classic Edition was announced, it was only U.S. and Europe. Folks were wondering what would happen with Japan. With Japan, it obviously made sense. It would model the Famicom. It does. It's the same thing. The controllers are wired in.
No, itty-bitty controllers, man.
Itty-bitty.
Tiny,
yeah,
because they
small.
never released them as separate, like, pluggable ones, maybe?
I think it's just...
I don't know. I didn't check.
Staying true to how the Famicom worked. They were wired to the system. It is weird. A friend of mine was really upset that the controllers are hardwired. He was just like, why? I do not like that. Hopefully the cord's a little longer than they are in the U.S. I'm not entirely sure if it is or is not.
Jose, I herald from a time where controllers were wired in, and then one of them would break.
Oh, talk about that. Wait, when did that happen?
Terrible. Like, I was playing games with my brothers, both of whom are older. We were playing Fairchild Channel F, Atari, back in the days, 2600.
Sure.
2600, you could remove them and could buy more. But I think the Fairchild Channel F, which the German version was called Saba Teleplay, it was wired in. And so, like, they also had really complicated controls where you could, like, you hold them like a gun almost, and you twist. You can twist and move the top, and the twisting function would always break. And then
I guess you bring up a good point, right? Like, if it broke, you're in trouble. I have not had a case where a controller has broken on me like that, but I can only imagine.
My PS4 controller broke. The hinge on the common problem with the shoulder button.
Hopefully, Nintendo customer service in Japan is as polite as it is in North America when something's not right, but we'll see. But I even admire that down to that the wire comes out of the side of the controller. The original Famicom family computer controllers, the wire did not originate from the top of the controller the way you saw in the United States. It came out of the left or right side, depending on which player you were. Second player did not have a start and select button. They had a microphone there instead, if I remember right. Or maybe they did have a start and select. I can't quite remember that. But the microphone, I do remember clear as day. It's on the controller, but doesn't seem to be active. That was how you killed... Paul's voice in the Famicom. So that's the other thing. You're getting the Famicom Disk System editions of Zelda, Zelda 2, Metroid, Castlevania. Those were all Famicom versions. So that's cool.
So they're the Disk System versions.
They are.
So they have the better audio and everything.
They have the extra audio channel and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh man. Now I'm super happy.
Yeah,
that
you should be. I
could not
pre-order
order. It does not come with an AC. Come with an AC adapter. Though.
Yeah. Well, at least you don't need to buy a second controller.
So I didn't order that. Yeah, that's right. I
didn't
order.
Come with a plug?
No.
And
those were all sold out. So in typical
me?
Nintendo fashion, you could not pre-order the power to power your console. But I'm hoping it's the same as the NES Classic, so I can use that.
Better. Yeah. If it is, you're in luck. Yeah.
Big tears.
Yeah.
But at least
GM size.
At least, at least the cables come out on the sides. But I love that. No, I love that nostalgia play.
No,
right?
totally,
like everybody in Japan, my age, and people younger remember the Famicom
fondly
and for those little quirks.
Yeah.
It's cool. Let us pre-order, please, Nintendo.
Yeah.
Please.
Just a moment, just to stare at the camera.
Blaze. Big bada boom. Thank you.
So, games included on the system: Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Excitebike, Balloon Fight, Ice Climber, Galaga, which I don't think we got on the NES Classic. Yi Are Kung Fu, which is a different version of Kung Fu, not the one that we know in the West, but still a version, similar action game. Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, Atlantis no Nazo, Gradius, Ghosts and Goblins, the game that is called Ghosts and Goblins in the U.S. is not called that over there. Solomon's Key, which thank God we didn't get because that game's confusing.
Makai or something.
Yeah, Makai Village. Good job. Metroid, Castlevania, Zelda 2: Adventures of Link, Bumping Sumo. That game's actually really fun to look at. Jared loves that game. I don't think that's the exact translation of the name, but it might be. Super Mario Brothers 3, Ninja Gaiden, Mega Man 2, River City Ransom. They got Kunio-kun. Yeah, they got Kunio-kun, and that game's the River City Ransom's fun. Double Dragon 2: The Revenge, Super Contra, or Super C, Final Fantasy 3, which never came out in the US as Final Fantasy 3 on the NES.
Yeah, right.
We got Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo, which was Final Fantasy 6.
That's a meaty game for a collection, too.
Oh, yeah. And it's the first time they did the job system, although it wasn't as good as the later implementation in 5. 5's job system is one of the best. You hear me? Dr. Mario, Downtown Neketsu March, so I'm not saying that. Mario Open Golf, Super Mario USA, otherwise known as Super Mario Brothers 2 from the US, and Kirby's Adventure. All right. That's all of them. Yeah, it's a good list.
You didn't pre-order? You didn't order it?
I want one, but it wasn't one of those things that I thought, well, I have to drop everything and make sure. I want to get the NES Classic. I mean, we're getting one in the office, but I want one for myself, you know. And so I'm waiting for that pre-order instead.
All right.
That to me is the bigger deal. So this morning, this comes from the official Japanese website. This is just a side note for folks. Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is coming out on November 18th, will be roughly twice the file size of your X and Y Pokemon game that's probably on your 3DS right now. 3.2 gigabytes for that game, which is meaty. It is big. Make some space.
Getting closer and closer to NX game sizes. That's what do you think that means? Just more kind of cutscenes and orchestrated music, or do you think it's just the better like graphics, more data stored for graphics in Pokemon and all that kind of stuff?
From what we've seen up to this point, it seems like a mix of both. It seems like a mix of features and ideas. I mean, there's a Pokemon Snap type mode in this thing, plus the ability to pet your Pokemon, plus all of the other suites of features, plus the campaign, plus I don't even know how much space this Rotom takes that's going to be telling you where to go on the bottom screen, things like that. I think it's a mix of both. This game will be interesting to finally talk about when we get to, because we may have seen it and we can't say anything until next week.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I know, but I got to do that. I got to do it like that.
Right, I'm taking one of your toys.
You'll hear more. Well, you'll hear more about it next week. But the double the file size has nothing to do with what I may or may not know about that game. Cool.
Taking the Game Boy Color Zelda DX.
No, absolutely not. That thing is cool. I found that in store. Last quick thing for news and preview, and just hey, before we get into previews, is that there's a new set of Zelda Figma figures coming from Good Smile, and they're based on Twilight Princess. Have you seen them?
I saw a picture.
You saw them on the site. They look really, really good, and you can find a story about it on the site. Oh man, the amount of detail on them is out of control. There's actually a bundle where you can get there's a 3 figurine set which includes Link, Zelda, and a DX version of Link with extra accessories, I believe is what it's called.
The weapons look really cool too.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, if you know your oh no, go ahead.
So
please.
no, and Zelda has her bow and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's a very pretty design.
It's off the hook. So the prices on these figures start at $5,500, so it's about $55 US. Yeah, 5,500 yen. And the base Link, that includes also the base Link, but they've got some really cool stuff. Every little detail you can think of is on these things, which is really cool. Perry's just checking out photos. You can see photos on the site. They're really, really good looking. So we should talk about games. There's a couple games coming out either this week or in the near future. But one that we should spend a lot of time on, and I feel like I should warn folks up front. We're going to try and not spoil things for you, but we are going to reference some jokes. So if you feel like jokes are spoilers, I guess you should stop listening to the rest of the show because we're gonna talk about it. But Paper
let's
Mario
talk about
Color
the early
Splash
stuff, right?
Yeah,
We're not going to get too deep.
We're not going to get too deep, but Paper Mario
Act
Color
one.
Splash is out by the time you're listening to this on Wii U. And this is the first Paper Mario game in a while, I think, since Sticker Star, unless you count Paper Jam as partially Paper Mario. But I mean, it only really starred Paper Mario. The rest was a Mario and Luigi RPG.
And even then, there's this kind of they all have the Paper Mario title, but there are these nuances where we went from. We once got a full-fledged RPG, right, with deep RPG systems, and this is definitely kind of. It's not like Sticker Star, but it's also not like Thousand Year Door.
That's right.
We're not completely back to that kind of setup.
Yeah, if anything, it is a reminder that Paper Mario, possibly, this is how Nintendo looks at Paper Mario. I mean, this dawned on me playing the game. Paper Mario is more an aesthetic choice and not necessarily an RPG.
Yeah.
And you can tell from the jokes, from the humor, from the graphic style, and how they try to take advantage of these guys are made of paper, so of course if you're in a battle scene that takes place at a windy location, you see them like fluttering like in the wind. You see the paper like waving back and forth a lot, versus if you're in an area where that doesn't happen. There are little nods like that even in battles they take advantage of, like showing you that. Or if like an enemy gets soggy with water in this world, which must be terrifying to everyone, by the way, you'll see that their color is desaturated and they look like they're a mess. They almost look like they're melting. Like it's actually kind of. Have you seen the Shy Guys that like get wet at certain points and you're like, ooh, like I'm so
look,
sorry.
I went from being very angry at the Spy Guys because they're super creepy and sucking away paint with straws.
Well,
it's really weird.
It is, and it is undercut.
To feeling
by,
bad for them.
Yeah, it's undercut by like a psycho, like the violin.
It has like this deliberately scary music, and it's this cute little guy going.
Yeah. No, they call him the introverted assassin.
Yeah,
a couple times.
This game has a really great sense of humor, and for that alone, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Our reviewer liked it too. Gave it a good rating.
Yep.
But also said it's not back to the kind of the really funny, interesting scenario writing you got in Thousand Year Door, right? Like and she talked about story, and some people scoff at that notion, saying, "Why do you have a story in a Mario game?" There was a story in the Paper Mario games that it wasn't about like dazzling you with the most unique setup, but it was funny. It was like these weird situations that had a great sense of comedy, and you were working towards something. And the series lost a little bit of that. That said, the humor, I do think some of the humor makes up for that, and it keeps it interesting. You want to keep playing.
When every character feels like, or at least the characters you meet have an additional line of dialogue that just kind of, even if they're trying to be straightforward with the thing they're telling you, they sort of pair it next to something that makes it a funnier example. So here's some example. It's like, someone is getting the paint sucked off of me. It's like, take these, remember me fondly, as he's like, as the the introverted assassin strikes. Or then there's Huey, which is this can of paint that follows you around and who is quite sassy. And
Huey, get it?
Yeah, no, of course. There's a lot of really good. I mean, the minute you meet him, he says something like, "The paint that you just soaked up is my blood, sweat, and tears. You'll have time to shower later." And it's just
there are a lot of like little non sequitur kind of weird sentences. Like you free these toads. They're all like in a house.
Oh, I love that one.
And a whole bunch of toads come out, like lots of them. And then the last guy said, like, man, there were so many. It was weird or something. It's
yes.
Things got weird.
No, there was so the line was, I actually wrote it down because I thought it was hilarious. So he says, it got pretty awkward and I'm probably going to move to a new town.
That's right.
Anyway, thanks for saving us. And you're just like, that's so funny. And there's just a lot of that where like you show up, you're the hero. You make someone's day, and then in that moment they give you this extra bit of information where you're like, oh, that's cute. And you're right. Paper Mario never set off to like, kill Aerith in the middle of the adventure, or like make you weep, or make you, like sort of go that extra like drama route. It was always like these sort of cute, like safe adventures for the most part.
Yeah, and like weird scenes. Like I was telling somebody on Twitter about this. Remember the scene with Peach and the computer? And the computer was in love with Peach, and it had this whole weird side story. Or like Mario as the wrestler. There were all these like crazy stories I like. They were unique because you didn't expect them to happen. Like you were just expecting, I stole Peach and I'm gonna rescue her, and like that's it. And there was so much more to those games. And there is that kind of spark in this game once in a while, but from what I've seen so far, and heard from obviously Terry who reviewed it, it doesn't quite get back to that.
Yeah, no, and there is sort of that. They make up for it with that part. The last one I'll mention is that you meet a toad who's in a boat, a blue toad who's in a boat who's going to sail off to find his destiny at the edge of the world, and he's surrounded by red toads making fun of him for it, saying this sounds like a midlife crisis, you should just buy the car and not do this. And they all just like all right, goodbye loser. And so it's just that kind of idea of having fun with that instead of like the scenario driven stuff that Thousand Year Door did. Now I do think though that folks are going to continue to wait for a 2,000 year door to happen someday, and maybe one day Nintendo kind of comes around to that. They've made it clear that Mario RPG is the RPG series. Otherwise, the one we know is Mario and Luigi. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because that series feels like it could use a break. There hasn't been enough difference, I feel, between each new chapter. Like Bowser's Inside Story to me felt like the last really smart one, just based on the scenario design alone.
Yeah.
The rest is just Foreign Kingdom, new partner, weird scenario, and I don't know. Sometimes that works, but for whatever reason, the last two, it didn't seem to blow the doors off of anyone.
Yeah, and I understand that Nintendo obviously wants to give, wants to have variety in their lineup, which is it's a small lineup, very focused, mostly made by them, right? And so they want their racing game with Mario Kart. They want Pikmin to be something else, right? Mm-hmm. They want Zelda to be something else. So it makes sense that they don't want to double up. But I felt like, the Mario and Luigi series felt so different, like that two-player setup to the kind of very different sense of humor to Paper Mario. Like I think they could coexist, and I wouldn't mind a little bit more of a choice system in Paper Mario again, where you build out certain things.
No, and I agree with you, and I especially like the idea that Thousand Year Door really nailed, which was that the entire story was almost like a stage play.
Yeah,
like the battle system. Every time you had a crowd of people in front of you, and it was a way to tell if you're doing well, if you're doing poorly, or if there was an enemy hiding in the audience ready to jump on stage and kind of steal your thunder, and you had to be aware of all those variables. And I think that's the thing that, whether or not they go back to the RPG, it'd be nice to have the RPG for sure, but that's the kind of stuff I want again, like that stuff, that idea of like finding these outside elements to kind of mess with you. And we're going to talk about the battle system next, because that's a part that I feel you and I are a little split on, but it's one that for the most part they decide to go with. So the big fear going into Color Splash is the Sticker Star 2. Now some folks didn't mind Sticker Star's sort of sticker based setup, but it did take away it took away a lot of the RPG mechanics, clearly, which was already upsetting to some folks. But then it did devalue battles, because it felt like, well, if I don't battle anything, I'm not wasting anything, so then I'm not worried about anything. I just got to run to the next boss, because realistically, all I need is a Think Sticker to worry about that guy. And so this time around, they went with a system where you're coloring in cards before you're able to deploy them. You have the ability to choose how much color you want to waste on them. You have 3 bars that govern how much paint you have. So I believe it's red, yellow, and blue. Mm-hmm. And if you have a standard boot card, and there are different sort of types of cards. So there's a raggedy boot, there's a regular boot, and there's like a super mecha boot kind of deal. And you can color in the card part way. Basically, the amount you color is shown through effectiveness of the attack.
Yeah.
So you're basically packing up the ability and then
and you have a choice, right? Like if you have a wimpy opponent, you don't have to waste
you don't even have to color it
right?
in, yeah.
And so you just send it off.
Yeah.
I think the place that you mentioned where we're split on is the mechanics for the battles. Like the part I love about the Paper Mario series, and this really opened my eyes back in the days when the series first arrived, right? We had all these kind of like turn-based or semi-turn-based battle systems where you're picking from a menu, you're hitting a button, then you're waiting for the move to execute. And then Square had already played with some kind of systems where there were some timed button presses in some of their games, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought made that much less routine.
Yep.
And so then Paper Mario came and said, you guess what? If you pay attention, you hit the jump button before you jump on a Goomba, you're going to get another jump, or you pull back the stick to hit them with a hammer.
Yeah, and if you hit it at the peak, you'll get a really strong attack.
And I think that's really cool. Like, it makes you much more involved in what would otherwise be just a menu-driven battle. And so that feature returns in this game.
Of course.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's simpler with a hammer than it used to be, but it's still
and it
there.
was simpler with the jump than it used to be too. Like
Yep.
you almost had to wait till the second before you hit the enemy. Now it just has to be somewhere between when you jump and when you fall.
It's more family friendly.
It's forgiving.
For sure.
Yeah. But I guess where we are split is that the cards that you view are shown on the gamepad. And of course, you can play in off TV mode and have everything happen on the gamepad. And there are 3 control schemes that you can choose to kind of sift through. They don't really do a great job of telling you that you could actually swap between. So the default controls are you have to tap basically fake buttons on the gamepad that will appear on the touchscreen, and you'll say, okay, yes, I want to prep that card. Here, I'm going to color it in. Now the card's ready, and then you flick to send it out.
Yep.
You can reduce that to buttons and touch. So you'll be able to do it all through buttons. You actually just flick up on the control stick if you want to send the cards out, little things like that, or accept something. And then the final one is
Advanced, right?
Advanced,
Yeah.
which removes a step, basically removes one step of sort of confirmation. So you pick the card you want, you place that card, then in that one turn, you fill that card with paint, and then you say, card's ready, and you flick.
So tell me, have you ever felt the need to have that extra step? That's what's so confounding to me. It's like when I discovered the advanced control
Sure.
setup, which, by the way, I discovered because I said, really? Like, it's going to be this for every battle?
For
I
every
got to
battle.
do and touch the color and then say, okay, and flick, right?
Sure.
Like, do I have to do that for every battle? I'm like, it's got to get easier. And
Sure.
so then I looked in the settings and found advanced, and it does take out the one step.
The middle step.
Yeah.
So I will admit it is not something that I feel like it changes the extra step in battle. So it's sort of a prep phase where you're basically determining, hey, how much color am I going to put in this, and how effective do I want these attacks to be? I think the system on its merit is a smart one. I just think the game itself doesn't challenge you in any way to be wary and mindful of it.
Yeah.
I think that's the core issue. I don't mind so much that I'm sifting through cards on the gamepad because I can sort them, I can do a whole bunch of things. Later on in the game, apparently Kamek comes out and actually wreaks havoc on your cards, so you won't see, like, they'll all get turned upside down. You
Right.
can't tell which one you're using. There are ideas like that I think are smart. Maybe. I mean, I've heard they frustrate some folks, and I haven't gotten that far. But I will say that I just wish there was a little more to color and leverage and whether or not that pays off or not. Like if there's a risk reward to it. Right now it just feels like you're kind of going through the motions. And I feel like that's where it becomes dull. And
Well,
I think that's
because
the problem.
there are a lot of enemies in the field, and maybe it's less of an issue if you don't fight that many, you just constantly run. But I want to get
then you
more
have Sticker
cards,
Star again.
and I want to
Yeah.
defeat enemies, right? And so then you face a lot of kind of very simple enemies, you know, like 2 shy guys, and you're like, I don't need to pick any special card to defeat these shy guys. It's pretty damn easy,
Yeah.
right? And so when something becomes an action that you repeat, I wish there was a macro.
Yeah.
Where it's like maybe on the screen it had, oh, did you know that if you have a simple enemy and you just want to always jump on them and not color the card,
Yeah.
just hit this button. Like that's what I was hoping for,
Sure.
but the game still requires you to do all the selection stuff. Granted, it gets pretty quick,
See, I
right?
might-
Like you get
yeah.
used to it and you do it very quickly, but it's not a fun action to flick.
No,
for me.
No, same. Because it's part of a prep phase. What I think should have been considered, and maybe this is heresy to Paper Mario fans everywhere. So do not don't hang on to your headphones because they're gonna pop out.
Oh God.
But no, I just think maybe if this was the mechanic you wanted to settle on, this battle prep phase, take out the real time stuff after. Come up with something else that used the gamepad. I know that's something that folks like. I like it, for
Should have
example.
kept the water
but
and done a spit take.
Okay, but yeah, right. No, or just spit it like straight at me, and I'll be like, my windshield wipers will turn on. No, but the reason I say that is because I like the real time mechanics of battle in Paper Mario.
love
But
that
let's
part.
face it, it's a perfect run for the first 2 hours. Like there's not a single thing that you'll make a mistake on. It just feels like you're gathering all these extra coins.
Our age
That-
group, I think, but I
yeah,
think
our
younger
age group.
players will struggle a little
But here's the
bit
thing:
more,
I think younger players may be a bit more fascinated with painting in those cards than
fine.
we are. There's that trade-off, right?
All right.
So I feel like
You
it's.
used my power against me.
I did. I feel like it's the symptom of us being older gamers, them being younger gamers. But then again, I don't know how long it would keep them entertained. You should put this in front of your kids and see what happens, and report back with findings. Because I'm just really curious if they care as much. Like maybe your youngest would kind of get
He's
sucked
too
in
cool
by
for
it.
that stuff already, but my daughter plays it and she likes it. And
She does.
She has not complained about it. And I
Yeah.
actually asked her, I'm like, "What do you think it's a pain in the ass?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Okay. Got it. Meanwhile, if he asked me, do you think this is a pain in the rear? I'm like, no. He's like, well, let me tell you.
I may have done that.
They may have done it once or twice.
No, but overall, look, I don't want this to detract from the fact that the core game is really fun. And like, you have the kind of OCD element to where you see discolored spots all over the map, and you hit them with your paint hammer to color them in, and like you do have to kind of pay attention to what colors you have so that you don't run out. Your color bar grows, and that is your experience point kind of level up proxy, right? Like where classic RPGs have you go when to level up, so you get all this more. You do have that element where you're working towards having bigger, more paint. Right?
Yeah. No, and just to go back to sort of about the graphics, like this has to be one of the better looking Wii U games I've seen. Yeah, it looks great. Every little detail, down to the little corrugated cardboard edges, even on coins when you pick them up, they look like they've been painted over with like fancy paint, but it's still every cardboard is at the center of everything.
I love the strings on clouds and things. You see in the background like just strings, and
even
when something
breaks,
it's just like
it just
it's
folds.
Like everything that is epic in real life is just really cheesy, deliberately so in this game.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
It's got a toilet paper door.
Yeah, there was that. And I just found myself wanting to paint in everything, and I don't think I've found a bonus associated with that yet. And I think also, and we haven't talked about the world map, but I do think they did a smart thing, sort of like Super Mario World, where when you clear a world, it draws a path to the next place, and that next place is where you're going to go. And they sort of contain their chapters by making them courses.
But that's also going back to the original Paper Mario spirit. That's kind of like a downgrade from an open world, right? Like I think a lot of fans are hoping that the game will return to more like this open world feel, overworld
but did you
feel.
mind the
I
feel
don't
of
actually
this
mind
one?
it in this game. I'm having fun with it regardless, and like it's not at odds with the Mario formula to have a world map like that, so it matches Mario. But I can see that some people want this kind of bigger, sprawling world that they can explore. But it doesn't have that. But the different areas you access do have a lot of kind of nooks and crannies and things to explore.
But it does do really smart call-outs to other Mario games. Like there's even like I just got to this beach resort, and there's a flag hanging that has the sunshine, the shine on it, and you're like, oh, I know that. Yeah, and some of the other jokes. But still, I will say I find them over-relying on Toads for the humor. And
Toads are funny,
luckily,
though.
and the dialogue saves them. But I feel like nothing else lives in this world except like you're just bombarded with different colors of Toads. Like there isn't.
They don't have a Count Black kind of.
I think that's the thing that. I don't need the RPG per se, but I like that in Thousand Year Door, you end up on the doorstep of some Goombas. Or am I confusing that with the first Paper Mario? I think it's the first Paper Mario. You end up basically at a Goomba's home talking to different Goombas, and you end up with a Goomba assistant. And there are things like that where I'm just like, okay, those were really smart ideas. That was a cool way to flesh out a universe versus you're drawing this line between good and evil, even though you do have Shy Guy assistants. There's a Shy Guy card, there's a Koopa card, and you can call them in as assistants to help you as well.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I still think it works. And lack of variety wasn't my issue for kind of like so far for gameplay and like characters, but it's like I want some more funny kind of scenario stuff happen.
Instead of just the side humor. Yeah. No, I hear you. All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, let's open up the question block. We haven't done one of those in a while.
Very nice. All right,
we'll be right back. And welcome back. Jose Otero here with Per Schneider. Hey. And we're going to open up the question block. So the question block is, of course, email questions from our lovely audience. You can email us at nvc@ign.com. Our first email, which is one of our more recent emails, but I found this question interesting, comes from Brian Patterson, who says, hey, love the podcast, long-time gamer on all major consoles and handhelds, but nothing beats the thrill and high quality to him of a Nintendo game. I would say a lot of things have that quality, but we'll keep going. My question is in regards to NX and the possibility of backwards compatibility with Wii U. If the system is cartridge-based, as most assume at this point, then backwards compatibility with any disc game is obviously not likely. Do you see the possibility of a device similar to the Game Boy player that allowed for GBA games to be played on the big screen via the GameCube? And the question goes on to just say, hey, that's kind of the thing he wants. Could this happen? He really likes Wii U. He really thinks that some folks miss some great games. And he doesn't want to have to basically purchase another system in case his Wii U ever broke on him.
Well, look, we don't know what Nintendo will do in the future, right? Like, we wouldn't have expected the Game Boy Player, for example.
Yeah, I don't think we would have expected DS games on Wii U either. I mean, you never know.
And even with Xbox One, right? Like, we had written off that Xbox 360 games would ever be playable again via an update. So you never know. My gut says that this is a line in the sand. They're changing their disc format again, like. Mm-hmm. And when we went to when we went to the GameCube after the N64, it was very clear that you're not going to be able to use the N64 games on your GameCube. There is the wild card nowadays where you could conceivably use a disc and somehow get credit in the store or assigned to your profile, but they never designed the system for that, right? Like, I don't think every disc has a unique code that can only be used once, but, a company could do that conceivably. Like, every disc game could have a unique code. You put it in the drive, it registers it as owned, and then you keep it. Because from a power perspective, like, it's possible that the NX could play Wii U games or Wii games, right?
Yeah. I just my thing is I find it unlikely. That's my gut.
I'm 95% sure that no.
Yeah, but I will say that you never can quite tell what Nintendo if Nintendo is determined to put something on that platform. I mean, again, would you have been able to call Game Boy Advance games, DS games played on your television, on your Wii U at resolutions they were never meant to be shown at?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have said, "Oh yeah, that's happening someday."
But they made you buy them again.
Yeah, and they made you buy them again, and
they'll do that.
That's the larger point I want to make. Yeah. I think that if they go back to the well, it's a digital release. It's games like Mario Kart that didn't need the gamepad in the first place. Maybe even it's Paper Mario, because there is an off-TV mode to this game, which at first I didn't even realize was there, because again, it's kind of embedded in those menus. It's in some of the weirdest spots, but I think that'll be the play. Like, it's either it's coming or it's not, and it's if they feel like they need it. One thing I will say is that during the Wii U era, you felt there was this push by Nintendo to make Wii U its Nintendo box, where every platform under the sun except GameCube was available for purchase in some way. And I don't think that goes away. I don't think NX makes that go away. I think to them the back catalog is valuable to a certain consumer. It's not valuable to every consumer, but I think it's them saying, okay, some of this stuff we can put this back out. I think it always comes down to how much work would it take to do it.
Yeah.
And clearly Game Boy Advance games and DS games I don't think took a ton of work to get done, but I mean, I don't know that.
If anything, I mean, think of the NX as being, from what we've learned, I always have to caveat that, but from we think it's going to be one day, I think it's going to be more flexible than most setups, right? Where, like, think about DS games, you could literally turn a widescreen screen vertically and have a DS setup where you have a top and a bottom screen on a vertical screen like that. And we don't know exactly how the removable controllers can be configured to the system. Like, you could conceivably have something that works as a DS setup for these kind of virtual console games. So, I agree with you. I think the virtual console is something that Nintendo likes. They have this tremendous back catalog that they will sell to everyone again. And then, I think the discs will just have to be replaced with digital downloads in the future.
Yeah. All right, next question comes from John Doe.
Oh, no.
Actually, his name is Eric, but the email says John Doe. Hey, gang, with NX looming, I would love to know what you guys would pick as your favorite Nintendo controller. He says his pick is the GameCube controller for its intuitive ABXY layout, pressure-sensitive LNR triggers. It also fit well in his hands and felt very comfortable. The only setback, in his opinion, was the ill-placed Z button. What's your pick? And he said, thank you for the show.
Wavebird.
Wavebird.
I love the Wavebird, and let's not forget that at one point all controllers were wired, and that felt really special. There were some third-party controllers, a lot used IR, that was a terrible way to communicate with the main console. Yeah. But, the RF setup for the Wavebird was just great, and it felt awesome. I liked the clicky bumpers. Like, I don't think they're necessary anymore now, but it was such a cool idea, especially for like gun games and stuff. The sticks felt great. I did like like the buttons that the original GameCube controller introduced, like that kind of the bean buttons and the big
and they were around the A button. I thought that was what made them really cool. Like, you knew where to find them based on not just shape but position.
And they felt really good.
Even though B was a circle, it always felt weird that B was a circle. B, most folks would have preferred another bean.
Another bean, but it felt like the classic fire button from an arcade machine. So I will never forget the traditional GameCube controller for introducing those in the first place. But I gotta say, the Wavebird is my favorite.
Well, no, and the best thing about the Wavebird, it was first party. It was sanctioned. Like, you always got this rinky-dink wireless controller from a third-party maker, and they were terrible. They were so bad. And this was the time where third-party stuff, when it came to hardware, was not reliable. I feel like the track record has gotten better, but every once in a while you get your PDP crap that is like, okay, that's not a GameCube controller, that's not a Smash controller. You put that thing away, that's too light and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, the only bummer with the Wavebird was that the years of colorful controllers were forgotten. We went back to gray. You know, like we had on the N64. I mean, we had banana yellow N64 controllers. It was awesome though, and like we have that now with Microsoft taking it to the next level where you can configure your colors. Yeah. It was a bummer that it went back to gray and kind of stayed there basically.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite too?
I'm torn between the GameCube controller and the Super Nintendo controller. I feel like the Super Nintendo controller, when I first
like with your giant hands were not
they weren't that big when I was a kid.
I see.
Yeah, I was a smaller human once.
Time has grown.
What hurts your hands? Like, I don't.
Mario Kart. Oh. And like I think right here on my hand, like where you're holding it, and you're pressing the shoulder button, and you hold it right there.
I do remember some pain from that.
And then the D-pad, but that can't be.
No, the NES D-pad was by far the worst. Like you would split, like you would get little grooves in your fingers.
D-pad
if you played
thumb,
too long.
yeah. Like I think the shape of our fingers forever changed by those.
Yeah, no, they're well defined now as a result. No, I wasn't a huge fan of the changes that happened to the Super Nintendo color-wise, but I think the smartest thing the North American Super Nintendo did was the concavity on X and Y. The concave buttons, it felt like
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Find them and notice
I never owned the US
right
one.
Away. Yeah, no, I would find them and notice them right away. And to me, when I first saw that controller, I will not forget how I felt about it. Where I was like, "There's just so many buttons on this thing. What's the story?"
Really?
Yeah, I felt intimidated because I was like, "Man, I miss A and B. Like now it's A, it's B, it's X, it's Y."
You don't remember
it's
I think it was in television with all the like numbers and everything?
We didn't have it in television in my house. Like we had, I told you we had an Atari for a day and we had a Nintendo. That was Nintendo Entertainment System. That was it.
And
a Commodore 64 with the
Trident.
No, we just had a regular joystick for the most part. Joystick.
No, I mean the Nintendo 64 with a Trident.
Yeah.
Didn't you just say the Nintendo 64?
No, I had an NES, not no, we didn't have an N64 much later. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, just I don't know. I was intimidated by it. I warmed up to it. I loved it. I felt like each game sort of found what it wanted to do with it. But I think it's the controller I spent the most part of my life with. If not the original PlayStation, I guess is second place.
I never liked it. I never loved that controller.
I never loved the D-pad on it, but the games were great, so I didn't mind so much.
By the way, the best controller now out of all console controllers, Xbox One Elite, the professional controller for the Xbox One. So I think it's so awesome.
So I like that controller a lot, but one thing I don't like on the Xbox is that as you go up to the shoulder and triggers, they come in, and when you got big fingers like mine, they just feel like they're getting close to touching again. I like the PS4 because it keeps left and right hemispheres away from each other.
Not giant approved.
Yeah, exactly. Next question comes from Daisy, who writes in, "Hello, gents. My question, do you think Nintendo will reveal anything big NX-related or otherwise at the Game Awards this year in December, perhaps in a similar manner to when they showed off Zelda back in 2014? Based off your conversation last week, I had my own ideas for Nintendo's NX launch plan. October shareholders meeting where we get a hint. December Game Awards, concept and basics revealed that way. They are the last bit of news that will carry through the holidays. And then late January, early February, Nintendo Direct, live event, press stream, whatever, just in time for launch. Would love to hear what you guys think." So I like this idea, Daisy, but I will say that I don't think Nintendo gives the reveal to the Game Awards. Like, as much as I think Nintendo can respect that show, I think they want to own it. And I don't think they want to be part of a night where everyone else shares that stage, even if their announcement is the biggest. The year they gave up Zelda, I feel like well, what did they really give you? They gave you a let's play of Miyamoto and Aonuma playfully, playing Zelda, but they didn't really reveal new features. They didn't really talk about
it was still
anything
awesome.
specific. Okay, the horse doesn't run into trees was a cool little tidbit, but like, what did you really see?
No, but maybe that will be the approach this year again. Like, I don't think there'll be an NX unveiling on that.
I don't think
it
so
either
either.
happens before or afterwards. But I think there'll be something there. I think there'll be a celebration of what makes Nintendo so much fun.
That's fine, but I just don't think the NX fits in there at all. Like, I think that they don't give that away. I think they want to own that themselves. I mean, they must want to if they've been hanging on to it for this long.
I don't think they're planning the reveal for that. And remember, this is a show that is not broadcast in Japanese, right? And like they want to have the announcement between Europe, Japan, and
so how Nintendo got around that last time is they basically released a video in Japan right after it went live in America. And it was also just funny because like there was a sort of an address by Miyamoto at one point, and do you remember he's holding up the old 3DS, the old 3DS XL, even though at that same time Japan had the new 3DS XL, and I was like, oh, no, or new 3DS. He was like, oh, I'm not touching that thing in North America. So everybody would have lost their minds. Like, oh, yeah, look what we have. Like, wow.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
Anything to add to that, just out of curiosity?
I mean, look, I think Jeff's great. Jeff Keighley's great at getting awesome, like, trailers, and it'll be a fun show to watch, I'm sure. And, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be watching it. But I don't think it'll be the next reveal.
Okay.
Sadly.
So, Alan writes in and asks a question about the Blue Ocean strategy. So I have a question I would love to know more about. I've heard the term Blue Ocean strategy for more than a few times, but never really know what it truly is. I've heard people say this tactic is used by companies such as Nintendo who don't want copycats of their products, and this is why Nintendo is so secretive with their product. Okay, so we're going to pump the brakes, Alan, in a second, but I'm just going to make sure if any of this changes. Okay, so he cites, for example, the PlayStation Move and how it was a copycat of the Wii. And he continues, but he wants to know what it is. So first of all, Blue Ocean strategy is not the copycat product thing at all. It has actually nothing to do with that. That's a separate issue Nintendo has, which is, we don't want to show our concept sometimes because we feel that when we get it right, other people will immediately run out and copy it, which has happened.
Copycat products turn a blue ocean into a red ocean. That's what happens, right, in the business. Blue ocean is when you create something that is unique, that doesn't have competition, right? Like you're essentially entering an ocean that is not yet full of sharks eating things and turning it red.
And in this case, the Blue Ocean strategy on Wii meant they were going after your grandma, your mom, everyone who could play a game could play a game on a Nintendo system.
And they're basically saying Microsoft and Sony are fighting in the ocean over the same audience, and the sharks are going after the prey there, and we're going to go to a completely different part of the ocean where that's not happening and have a different device. Now, the irony is that Nintendo does use Blue Ocean in cases where the ocean is freaking red, man. Like, they're talking about the handheld market as a Blue Ocean. It's not. It's not, right? Like the iPhone and millions of Android devices are swimming in that ocean, and you can say that you're not competing, but you are competing for time, and you are competing for the same audience. And so that's where it's important to note that, sometimes it's a matter of perspective as well. But the Wii absolutely was a Blue Ocean approach. It was the only machine with these motion controls. And you saw what happened when Sony and Microsoft followed. They took the special away with it, right? Like the Kinect and the Move. And to be fair, Sony had the iToy and some of those experiments before as well.
That's right. Yeah, there were some really smart experiments.
But now suddenly that wasn't a unique selling point anymore for the Wii, and that can turn the waters red.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it is basically, going after the not typical consumer, going after someone else and making sure that not every effort is for the hardcore gamer, which we've talked about on this show too, right? Like not every Nintendo product is necessarily made for the Nintendo fan. Like it is made for, the Vitality sensor definitely wasn't going to be for the hardcore Nintendo fan, although who knows what that thing was.
And
that was an example of Blue Ocean.
But I think the reason why they didn't bring that out is because the wearables market got so crowded too, right? Like all these devices now that you can sync with your phone that tell you how many steps you've taken, how you're working out. And so I think that's why Nintendo said, hey, we're not going to do wearables, we're going to do non-wearables. And of course there is a wearable, it's The Pokemon Go Plus,
that's
right?
secretly the first wearable, right there. It absolutely is, and I don't think they did a great job on it. Just because I mentioned last week, the clasp is the worst. Like I feel like it undoes itself every other minute. Whereas those Wii U clasps, man, those things don't come off for nothing. Nobody's business.
They made sure, because those can fly into your TV.
Fly into your TV. There's that whole chestnut. But yeah,
which happened at the old IGN LA office. I kid you
not. Tell that story. Tell what happened.
Catherine Bow, if you're listening to this, Catherine was in sales, and she, everybody in editorial always made fun of the fact that the straps are there, and like nobody ever used them. And so then she played, and she got really excited.
What game?
And the thing hit the TV, and there was a mark forever on that thing.
It was a plasma.
There was a mark on the TV forever. That thing went flying, and so obviously, it happened to more than one person. There were pictures of broken TVs.
Sure.
I gotta think.
But there were also people hamming it up on YouTube, putting up the video like it was America's Funniest Home Videos.
But then we all had to practice safe gaming with that rubbery thing on top of the controllers. I recently, I kind of ignored that they were on there when I was playing Wii U, but I took them off.
Yeah.
And it's just so much nicer, man.
Yeah. No, they are nicer to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, next question comes from Nathan. It's a little long, so I'm going to try and get to it. He says he took a bit of flack recently, so he loves the show. Everyone starts the episode with the email with love the show. I don't want to overlook that. Thank you, Nathan. He took some flack from the MEC Facebook group recently because it was due to my post essentially saying that if Nintendo doesn't reveal any info on the NX by the end of October, I am out and they can keep their console. People took issue with this seemingly entitled opinion, while others defended that position, saying that Nintendo has brought this upon themselves. My post, which was prompted by Jose's article about Chinese gaming tablet that looked just like the rumored NX concept design, was born out of frustration. I had a sneaking suspicion that Nintendo waited too long, yada, yada, yada. And he says, basically, what's our take on this? Sort of that position, I guess. Have they waited too long and missed their window? With this holiday season coming up and AAA games, to say nothing, PSVR and Scorpio, surely they can't wait until we enter the holiday shopping season to give us some news, can they?
It depends on what it is, again, right?
It depends on what they want it to be.
If now the reveal is exactly all the rumors and there's nothing special, I do think that they have waited too long, right? Mm-hmm. That they will not be able to generate this excitement. But that's for us informed consumers, right? For the general public out there, they didn't know anything about Wii until you showed it to them. And it's going to be the same with a device like that, where we sit at the spout and we know what's coming, and we may be disappointed if it doesn't live up to the hype and the long wait. But think about it the other way around. What if they had revealed the NX at E3 and the thing wouldn't come out till March, and then you have the announcement of the Xbox One S with its HD Blu-ray player, the PlayStation Pro, right? The Scorpio, like all these announcements, even this Chinese device, a kind of a cheaper tablet device that was shown, I think, even a year ago, right?
Yeah.
At a convention.
Yeah, June.
I think with all this time for the concept to sit out there, for the competition to react to it and kind of consider whether they want to go in this direction, I think that would have been worse.
I just don't think we can make that call until we see what it is, and I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to get really upset about it and say, well, if they don't tell me soon, I'm not buying it. I just think, look, if it's cool enough when they announce it, you're going to buy it. Like, let's not even pretend that's not a thing. I do think that you should, if you feel burned by Wii U and you have concerns, you should sit on the sidelines and just watch and wait and see.
Yeah.
But do I think it makes sense to live with this ticking clock over your bedroom every night and every morning when you wake up saying, well, they still haven't? And I'm a hypocrite because we just said the NES Classic still isn't available for pre-order. But you know what? That product has a date, and that date is a little over a month away from now. And if anything can be learned from this, NX cannot, I feel, go this route, especially if you want your consumer to feel satisfied at the end of the day. Like, we're obsessing over NES Classic, and it's 30 games we all played already. That's kind of silly on our end. All I'm trying to say is hang in there. I do think that the wait is long, but I do think that there's enough announcements around it that maybe waiting is the smartest thing to do. Yeah, and we don't know that yet. Maybe it isn't.
There's one more thing, Nathan, that you're forgetting about, of course, is that these devices are built to play games, and we know Zelda, and it looks good, and I guarantee you're gonna want to play it on a new shiny device. So when you're saying that you're out, you're probably not thinking all the way through, because the moment they show you the next big Mario game, I guarantee you they pull you right back in.
Yep. And they get you every time.
Every time. Pull me back in. What else you got?
I'm trying to find one. All
right, I'll entertain you.
Yeah, entertain. Tell some jokes. I usually grabbed one, but I started answering that question.
I have no jokes. So I'm gonna look at Jose's stuff. So
hold it up and I'll tell you where it came from.
Unhealthy Hamilton obsession.
That's not part of my obsession. So
Alexander Hamilton's Guide to Life.
So that came in the minute I got back from vacation. It was sitting on my desk. Someone, I guess, because I've tweeted about Hamilton so much and said so much on the show about what Hamilton is. I am. That showed up in the mail. I thought that was funny.
Nice.
Tell people what that's.
I thought you would by now have every Hamilton item, but it seems like you're never going to be satisfied.
Lin-Manuel's hair. No, I'm kidding. Imagine.
What is this? This is like how to play games.
Why don't you read what it is? You read Japanese.
Yeah, but
his name. That's bad.
I'm gonna rip it.
No, don't rip it.
I'm gonna rip it.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? This is like this goes back to the 70s, man. What the hell is this? This is for old people.
No, it doesn't go back to 70s.
Yeah, look at this, 1974.
That's
Speed Racer.
Yeah, that's Sakurai's gaming history. That's,
Taito. I see.
Stuff that he either admires or made.
Pretty cool. And then you've got, of course, the Zelda Hyrule graphics thing that looks really cool. What is that Famicom looking Yokoi Gunpei thing?
Oh, this book was a really good find. So sorry, we've transitioned over to things Jose bought on his Japanese vacation. So this is a book that is about the devices and things that Yokoi made at Nintendo. And it was released the year that it was originally released the year that he passed away. So I believe me and a friend were looking through the copyright notices, and it said it was originally published in May of the year that he died. And so this was after he left the company and he had moved on to, it was Wonder Swan, right? Like he ended up there. This is just basically a book going through all of that stuff. And apparently he contributed to it, although a lot of it is written in the third person, so I'm not sure if he gave them notes, but there's some cool diagrams and things in there.
It's awesome. These are true toys. And like, when you think about Nintendo, how they're still like the crazy toy maker, there's like Eleconga, electric congas. Like a conga set that you can turn on with electric sounds, like a ball blaster, the ultra hand, the grabby hand thing that lets you grab things that are far away without getting up. Obviously Rob, some of these inventions, the Duck Hunt rifle.
Yeah, that thing is gnarly. Man. You should look that up. The original Duck Hunt was a projector rifle game that you played on the wall. It was from Nintendo's toy line. And obviously in Japan, when they make a gun-based peripheral thing, they do not care if it looks like a real gun, which always freaks me out a little bit. Because overseas, that doesn't fly at all. But we're a little more sensitive to that stuff, I feel, just because of horrible things that have happened.
And then, of course, the Game & Watch, the Computer Mahjong Yakuman, which is an electronic mahjong game. I remember when I was a kid, there were all these kind of handheld electronic games, even, around the time of the Game & Watch. And then 1989, the Game Boy.
Yeah, they even got a diagram of, like, the love tester and all that stuff.
This is really cool, man. Yeah, I wish they would do, like, a full color version of this book sometime.
I wish someone would translate it, to be honest.
Virtual Boy 1995.
It's all in Japanese. Yeah, the system that solved the one problem that didn't need to be solved. All right, our last question today. This is our last question for today. It's a 3-part question, so I'm going to let this fly. It comes from Connor, fan of the show. Hey, Jose, Pierre, and sorry Brian's not here, but it says Brian. Had a couple questions to throw past you guys. Number 1, as a diehard Mario fan, I am both excited and terrified by Nintendo's statement about how the next NX Mario game will be he calls it a huge shift for the franchise. I got to correct that, but I'm going to wait. What kind of changes do you think this game will make to the franchise? Do you think it will be a Galaxy sequel or some totally new concept? He didn't say a huge shift. So Miyamoto said it would be a new way of looking at Mario, a new way to play Mario. I didn't interpret it as like Mario is all of a sudden not going to be jumping or something like really crazy like that. Like I think you should pull that back in a little bit. But I also think Nintendo trains some of its fans to be afraid when they say they're going to change something, just because you don't know if you're getting, your RPG elements are gone from Paper Mario.
Or Pikmin is 2D.
Or like Pikmin as a 2D game. I just think sometimes folks are trained to worry. No offense, Connor. So I mean, I think it's just wait and see, but I guarantee you he's going to jump. Like, I think that if you look at the last great game in that series, Galaxy, I think what I loved most about Galaxy was that it was platforming under every single situation, what it felt like every situation possible. Upside down, off of trampolines, while being chased by a sprite ghost that does the exact same things you do. Like, there was every single modifier I can think of.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought I'd be running on the ceiling in a Mario game, understanding and making the jumps as well as I did, but I did.
Yeah, again, it really depends on what device this is too, right?
Yeah.
Like if the NX has straps and you can strap it to your head and do VR games, you can imagine that the Mario games have to evolve with that as well, which, its prime focus is not going to be a VR headset, of course, but like it really depends on what this machine can do.
Yep.
But like when you go back in history, right? Like the first couple of years of the Mario games, they were basically a straight up evolution. It's like you're playing this game. Yeah, some of the elements changed, and like at one point you pulled out turnips because you had this weird offshoot game. But generally they stayed the same until you go to like the Mario 64 age, right? Like where the game concept really changed radically.
Yep. Well, what I was going to bring up was look at Aonuma, and don't forget, like, the Zelda team and the Mario team are the two most talented teams at Nintendo. Like, this is the top design talent is put on those two teams. I don't think that you would disagree.
No, but I mean, looking at a game like Splatoon, there are other
people have ideas.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. But Aonuma and all that lead up to we're going to challenge the way you play Zelda. We're going to re-examine the conventions of how Zelda games work, and then look at what Breath of the Wild is. It is not radically unlike any Zelda you've ever seen before. It's just one that is being a little more thoughtful and, okay, we have a big open space. How do we want to entertain people while they're looking for things in that space? And the answer was physics and a lot of cool little discoveries.
Yeah. And that's essentially like you take the Miyamoto quote, right? Like Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild, these are different from Link to the Past or the Ocarina of Time formula, which is that game in 3D, right? They're departures. And so I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like if you think back to Sunshine was a pretty big departure from Mario 64 in that, they gave you the ability to hover with this device and like shoot essentially, right? Which you
swim,
never had a Mario game.
All this crazy
so
stuff.
all these weird kind of physics puzzles that were added before they yanked the backpack away, and then you're like, oh my God, that's what Mario used to be like. This is terrifying, right?
Yeah. Especially in those stages.
Yeah, I really like a lot of things that game tried to do.
Yeah.
And then Galaxy again changed a lot about how you think about traversing the world and like the puzzles that they did, and like it's almost like Mario was trapped in these toys, right? Like these kind of giant pills with labyrinths in them, and so I think this is something to be excited about because you're gonna get a departure like a Galaxy from a Mario 64.
Yep. So then, second question: why is it that GameCube games are totally absent from the Wii U Virtual Console? I mean, no one knows. My guess, it probably costs more to make them look better, or to make them run at all.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good question.
It is. Yeah, they put N64 games up there, but maybe that's somewhat easier to do.
I mean, my initial reaction would have been like Space. I mean, they're very big games to download in some cases, but then Wii would be the same,
they put
right?
Wii games up for download, so that wouldn't be it.
That's not a reason. I don't know. That's weird. Maybe
it's definitely a thing that folks have brought up constantly. Like, where are the GameCube games? And it's like, well, on your GameCube?
But maybe it's also a sign that some of the best GameCube games were playable on Wii and Wii U, right? Like think of Metroid Prime or Wind Waker, right?
HD,
and so
Princess.
there weren't as many titles that were conspicuously absent that they had to make available.
I want Double Dash. I want. I mean, I could think of some. What was that one that Sega
Double
made
Dash
with
is coming
the chicken?
back on the NX. That's why.
Yeah, with the kid with the chicken, Billy Hatcher. You like that game?
That's Sega's game, right?
Yeah.
I remember. That was was it Yuji Naka? Who made
I don't remember.
It was it was from Sonic, right?
Yeah,
but Sonic team.
Yeah, but there was Billy Hatcher. I mean, Phantasy Star Online, even though the online part wouldn't work, so that wouldn't work.
That's tough to make work. You have to upgrade that, but that'd be really cool in today's age again.
Sunshine. We were just talking about.
Sunshine
is the game I thought would show up on Wii.
Me
like
too.
The minute you saw a Wii remote, I was like, you know how easy it would be to aim Flood now? Oh my god! Like finally, and it's like, nope, you're not getting that. And I'm like,
yeah.
No, I always thought that game would make sense.
it's a weird thing. I don't. I mean, there's no reason. Like, it's not the controller or the technology or anything. They could make it happen if they wanted to.
Maybe one day we'll get to ask, but I'm definitely not burning a Miyamoto question on where the hell are the GameCube games. I'm sorry. Like, no offense, Connor. So next one. I love hearing from you guys about basically new indie games that come out on the eShop. What are 3 Wii U indie games off the top of your head that you would recommend checking out?
Oh man,
Fast Racing Neo.
Huh?
I did one.
Yeah,
for
Fast Racing Neo. They just had the collection come out for Wii U. With
in Europe.
Oh, it's only in Europe?
Well, the packaged version is only in Europe, but the DLC should be out everywhere if it's not out already. I was on vacation, so I haven't checked.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank. What are they called? They're what are the games called?
What?
The
eShop selects is what those were called. Yeah. But
No,
if you're a European listener, you can go pick that game up.
Yeah. What's a good on the Wii U?
SteamWorld Heist.
Yeah, so that's sorry, that's what I was
out.
thinking about. I'm like, I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember the title. SteamWorld Heist and SteamWorld Dig are out. Is that the game that's only in Europe or no? No, that's here too, right?
No, they're both here. Yeah, SteamWorld Dig.
So
was
there's the double pack for those 2 games.
Like a collection.
Really like them both. You'll enjoy them if you haven't played them. You know, I played Heist on the 3DS. It's a great little turn-based shooter, which with crazy robots and in this crazy universe. And
so for the third one, Affordable Space Adventures, because we loved it. We had
so
a lot
I
of
really
fun with
like that game. Yeah.
I would also say Rumbo. Rumbo is fun if you have a group. I think it's a little bit generic in terms of the character look, and I think that's my only beef with that game. But if you have a group of people willing to give that game a shot, you will have a great time with that game. Like, no question.
But I would say for Affordable Space Adventures, it's a 3 friends game.
Yeah, also co-op.
And then we'll be enemies after the game.
Yep.
When you play it, get that if you are planning to play co-op.
Yeah,
you know.
Okay.
But that's a really clever game, and like it's hard to make that game happen on any other device and any other machine.
Yeah.
So that's a unique.
You also
one.
got Jotun, which you and I played.
Which one?
Jotun.
Oh yeah.
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 That was part of the September Nindies thing.
I mean,
Axiom Verge, easy.
Yeah, you put me on a spot. I haven't thought about this, but like,
that's why I'm trying to help you out.
You go into the eShop. There are a ton of really good games there. You know.
Yeah. Shovel Knight. The indie game. I almost feel like it's not indie anymore because it's so big.
It's still an indie game.
Yeah, I know it is, but it's fantastic.
To me, that's like Axiom Verge. It's kind of like this throwback indie game. Like the developer did not spend all this time on high def graphics, right? It's like this love letter to classic games.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good selection. I mean, start there. If you've played all of them, please come back.
Yep. Cool. Well, that's his last question in his 3-part volley. Thank you, Connor, for emailing us. Thank you, everyone, for emailing us. And we've got another episode in the book. You want to pick up one more thing from the table to bring up and talk about that's here?
I think we went through everything. You just have, what is this Super Smash Brothers stand thing?
Oh, so in Japan, if you're watching the video, you can see this. If you're listening, sorry, but I will do my best to describe it. Nintendo put out these dioramas for you to display your amiibo. Basically, the thing that third parties were doing, but Nintendo did it on a cheaper scale. And in some ways, it looks better to me than like the warp pipe that holds, like a Mario figure that they sell. Or there's like one that it's like a staircase from the end of a Mario level. So this is completely made of cardboard, hard cardboard at that. And you have to basically put the pieces together. They have one for Smash Brothers. They have one for Splatoon. They have several for Splatoon, actually. They have the stage where the girls sing. And I think they have 2 multiplayer stages. The Squid Sisters, which, by the way, I put the Squids. This is a weird thing that occurred to me the other day just because I got back from vacation. I was severely jet lagged. And I looked at my desk and I had Callie, Mario, Luigi, and Mari all lined up. And I just realized, oh, wow, pink and red, green and green, like, were these somehow influencing each other, like brothers, sisters? Never occurred to me. Really weird.
Wow, yeah.
Just a thing that was like, hey.
I think Nintendo loves that setup, right? Like the part counterpart, like the Wario to Waluigi.
Yeah.
Like the kind of they're related visually, but there's like a distinct color difference going on. Yeah. And then when you look closer, obviously there's more. But
no, but you see that. I was like, oh, pink and red instead of just like flat red. But then again, red wouldn't look good in Splatoon.
Yep.
But anyway, they would look like blood. But anyway, so yeah, you can pick these up. So they have several. It's mostly plastic and cardboard. It costs. This one was $8.
Nice.
I heard they tanked actually in Japan. It did not do well, but it's this sort of silly thing you can buy to display your amiibo if you have the space. We actually have this in a display case outside the office or outside of editorial, but within the offices of
Ooh,
IGN.
so you can see it in person when you come to visit.
Yeah, you can see it when
That's
you come
right.
in. Yeah, we actually have one there, and yeah,
20
you can find it
20 years of
online if you
gaming.
look for it. Yeah, is that it? Is there anything else here?
No, that's it. I think we
got 'em
went
all?
through everything. That's really
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
Nice
Yeah,
little
This
collection.
is
Nice-
everything
nice
I got
haul.
on my Japanese vacation. Yeah, including.
Well, this is for me, right? Thank you
you-
so
yeah,
much. That's
sorry.
very nice of you.
That is
Oh, man.
Link's Awakening DX
Yeah.
in Japanese, which has a
Boy
really
Color.
cool box. Yeah, it's a really cool box, the Game Boy Color version. Yeah, I found that in a shop while I was looking around with a friend of mine. You know what he brought up? That every game has a story, and I feel like we should explore that a little more. Just like every game on your shelf has sort of a time and a place, where you were, who you were with, what happened, what didn't happen. Maybe we should explore that on the show. a little
I
more.
think that's a really, really interesting concept.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
All right. Well, there you have it. This is Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of October 6th. No Brian, but if you're at Comic-Con, make sure you stop the Great Rapper and say what's up.
Say hi.
Yeah, I'm sure. And be polite. Otherwise, I don't know. He's from Jersey. Those guys can be kind of twitchy.
He's actually not as scary as he pretends to be.
Is he?
He's harmless. But he may have Max with him, who's very tall.
Yeah. So, but also harmless.
Yeah,
you
also
could
totally
say.
harmless.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You know, but go say hi.
Yeah, be
Go
nice.
see those guys. And if not, come see us October 15th in town. You can't miss us. IGN. 20 years of gaming, celebrating it with Alienware. You should be there. All right. Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. Well, first you can email us with feedback on the show, nvc@ign.com.
Yep.
Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. You can find Brian Altano at Agent Bizzle on Twitter. In fact, use that to find out where he is during Comic-Con. You can find Per Schneider at.
Pear IGN?
You can find myself, Jose_Otero. Thank you so much for watching, listening, participating, emailing. And come back next week for more Nintendo Voice Chat.
See you then.